这次回国走了10几个城市，体验感最差的一个地方。
During my recent trip back to China, I visited over 10 cities, but the worst experience was in Yangshuo, Guilin. I joined a 2-day, 1-night tour that promised no shopping stops, but in reality, we visited 4 shopping spots. More than the attractions themselves, the tour tricked us into waking up at 6 a.m. and heading to a place where we would likely lose money. We ate steamed buns early in the morning, knowing we'd be spending more later. Eventually, we boarded the bus, unknowingly playing the role of naive tourists. The children were unaware of the situation and were busy peeling eggs. The first stop was a luxury cruise on the Li River. It was relatively normal there, with salespeople pushing various products, but you could choose what to buy. We chose a 180 yuan package with a small fish, shrimp, and a pot of tea. The second stop was a village where we watched an elderly woman comb her hair, a ritual done hundreds of times a day. This was all a prelude to selling silver jewelry. They claimed that buying wasn't mandatory, but the guide repeatedly pressured us, saying that if we didn't buy, it was a reflection of poor service. This moral coercion worked, and we ended up buying silver cups for almost 7,000 yuan. Next, we were taken to a jade and emerald store, where we spent 90 minutes being followed by a salesperson and being pushed to buy. In the end, we bought the cheapest item for over 500 yuan. The final stop was the worst. We were locked in a small room, and the pressure to buy was unbearable. They didn't allow us to record or take photos. It felt like an unprecedented amount of pressure. On the bus, the guide continued promoting local specialties at prices far higher than what you could find online, like a seaweed snack priced at 100 yuan for 3 boxes, where it could be found on Taobao for less than 50 yuan. Forced consumption has recently become a major issue in China's tourism market, especially in popular tourist spots. Recently, a Chinese-American family visiting Guilin took a tour to make things easier, but it ended up feeling like they were entering a fraud trap. The so-called no-shopping tour lured tourists with low prices, but in reality, they used multiple shopping stops, moral pressure, and psychological tactics to push high-priced purchases. This kind of deception overshadowed what should have been a fun and relaxing trip. The Mulong Tower scenic area in Guilin has been exposed for a strange practice. Visitors are required to pay 55 yuan for a ticket just to use the restroom. This has sparked widespread public attention.
Hey, go out, go out, go out. I need to use the restroom. Buy a ticket, buy a ticket. To use the restroom, you need to buy a ticket. How much is it? 55 yuan. 55 yuan just to use the restroom? I want to speak to your manager. You need to buy a 55 yuan ticket just to use the restroom?
The video shows a male netizen at the entrance of a scenic spot, stating that he wanted to use the restroom inside the park. However, he was stopped by a security guard wearing a work badge, who repeatedly insisted that he buy a ticket. The man and the people around him asked how much it would cost, and they were told it was 55 yuan, about $7.66 US. Upon hearing this, they questioned if 55 yuan was too much, but the guard remained silent and insisted that a ticket was required to enter the park and use the restroom. The netizen and other tourists continued to argue with the guard, but they couldn't reach an agreement. Everyone had to pay the ticket to use the restroom. The truth is, the Mulong Tower is privately operated, and because it's a replica of an ancient structure, there aren't many visitors. Locals don't care to visit either. Nearby attractions like the Li River and Diecai Mountain draw far more visitors. At the entrance of the park, there's a plaza where tour buses are parked, and many visitors getting off the buses are searching for restrooms. There aren't any nearby, so the operators at Mulong Tower cleverly charge 55 yuan for entry just to use the bathroom. However, it's a place that no one really wants to visit. Guilin's tourism industry is facing serious problems with overcharging. Some netizens shared that parking near Yangshuo's West Street costs 50 yuan per session, and some restaurants charge even more. Renting an electric bike costs 50 yuan for just 2 hours. These are all one-time scams, and after visiting once, people don't want to return. Others complain that some people in Guilin's tourism industry are making money unethically.
Stop talking, just go ahead and shop. You're so arrogant.
Let us get on the bus.
Wait a minute, how much have you spent in the scenic area?
This tour is 199 yuan. It never mentioned anything about shopping.
For 199, we're taking you people on a round trip of over 400 kilometers. If you don't shop, I'll lose money. How can you say that? You all need to spend 5,000 yuan per person in this area, or none of you will leave. We've already spent over 300. Over 300? What good is that?
What do we need to buy? You're saying we have to spend 5,000 yuan?
Spending over 300 doesn't even cover my fuel costs. But you didn't mention anything about shopping beforehand. If I told you upfront, would you still come on this trip?
I'm just asking for taking us to that jade store to force us to buy jade.
You can buy jade or anything else. Souvenirs, gifts, whatever. As long as you spend 5,000 yuan in that shop. Otherwise, don't even think about getting on the bus to go home.
Recently, a video surfaced of a tour guide in Jiuzhaigou blocking the bus door, not letting tourists who refused to shop to get on. A tourist posted the video, claiming that after the tour ended, the guide wouldn't let them leave until they spent 5,000 yuan each. The guide's arrogance led to a tourist slapping the guide in frustration. In 2025, forced consumption scandals were reported in various tourist destinations. In Dali, a guide bragged about never missing a sale in 10 years, while in Shangri-La, a guide pressured tourists to buy expensive jade. These chaotic practices not only disturb the tourism market, but also ruin the experience for tourists. The core issue behind these forced consumption practices lies in the profit chain of low-priced tours and the regulatory gaps within the Chinese government. Moreover, the punishments for violating travel agency rules are often too light to be deterrent. In the first half of 2025, there were 12,000 travel-related violations nationwide, but the fines were less than one-third of the illegal profits. As the summer peak tourist season began in 2025, with a sharp rise in the number of travelers, various tourism scandals exploded. Popular tourist spots have become accident hotspots. On August 6th, in the Zata scenic area of Xinjiang's Ili Kazakh Autonomous Prefecture, a rope bridge collapsed due to a broken cable, causing the bridge to tilt severely. Several tourists were trapped on the bridge, and 29 others fell into the fast-flowing river below. Tragically, 5 people died, 22 were lightly injured, and 2 were seriously injured. A witness recalled, one side of the bridge cable suddenly snapped, and the bridge tilted instantly. I quickly grabbed the other cable and moved to the bridge's support pillar. We were trapped on the bridge for about an hour before the rescue team started using an excavator bucket to save us. A survivor who fell into the water wrote on social media, trembling, I climbed to the shore and saw many people swept away by the river. My hands are still shaking as I type this. What's more shocking is that this disaster could have been prevented. The steel cable of the bridge had already posed a fatal risk. On June 19, 2024, the same bridge tilted 15 degrees due to a broken cable, injuring 22 tourists. The frequent accidents stem from a disconnect between the private operator and the County Tourism Bureau's responsibilities. A required load-bearing monitoring system requested last year has yet to be installed. The area is now closed, and the cause of the accident is under investigation. On August 15th, the Anliang Food Festival in Pingdingshan, Henan Province, saw a pirate ship ride break in half while carrying several passengers. Videos show passengers carefully climbing down the broken ride, with cries and screams heard in the background. Some passengers were trapped inside. Local authorities responded that the ship's keel had broken, and the injured passengers were sent to the hospital. On the weekend of August 17th, a large number of tourists brought their children to experience the rafting at Tianmu Mountain in Anji. At the rafting location, the lines for the shuttle buses were so long that they seemed endless. The waiting area was overcrowded, and getting on a bus would take at least 2 hours. Due to the extreme heat, a young girl fainted from heat stroke, and the crowd began to shout for refunds. Tianmu Mountain Rafting, a popular tourist spot in Baofu Town, Anji County, Zhejiang Province, has drawn complaints from many visitors. One tourist advised, never go to Anji Tianmu Mountain Rafting. The lines for ticket pickup, life jackets, and helmets are chaotic, with no staff managing the crowd. One visitor shared their own experience, saying that on August 10th, when they went rafting at the same spot with their younger siblings, their sister accidentally fell into the water. There was no rescue staff on site. Terrified, she clung to the boat and was dragged along for a distance, injuring several parts of her body and tearing her workout pants. Fortunately, a kind-hearted tourist saved her and took her to the end point. Afterward, they took her to a local clinic for treatment. The traumatic experience left them with a significant psychological impact.
这就是张家界的旅游旺季啊，这么多大巴车停摆。
This is Zhangjiajie during the peak tourist season. There are so many tour buses parked with no customers. This place, that place, and over here too. It's all the same.
In Zhangjiajie, during the peak travel season, many tour buses were parked with no customers in sight. A tourism professional complained. This year, the tourism industry is in bad shape. The competition is so intense, and everyone is just comparing prices. The average daily spending of 114 yuan per person was shockingly low, down 40 yuan from pre-pandemic times. What's even more surprising is that high-end hotels have been abandoned, while budget hotels are still accepting bookings until 3 a.m. Riding the cable cars used to be an activity for older people and children. Now even young people prefer to hike, saying it's cheaper and healthier. A netizen in a car-sharing group posted a trick. During the day, I take advantage of the tourist spots, and at night, I sleep in the car in a sleeping bag. I've come all this way, but I don't want to spend a single penny. My strategy is budget travel at its peak. Qinghai-based blogger Lonely Hero Uncle posted a video.
今年暑期好几亿的游客集体上演了一场
This summer, hundreds of millions of tourists collectively staged a large-scale performance with the slogan, "I've come all this way, but I won't spend a single penny." Scenic spots were freeloaded, with tourists' enjoyment built on the suffering of businesses. This generation of tourists has taken budget travel to new heights. For example, at Chaka Salt Lake in Qinghai, tourists lined up for restrooms, but their average spending was less than the cost of a bottle of mineral water. One manager of a scenic spot complained, "Now we've just become a parking lot. Tourists come in, take their photos, and leave. Even the trash cans barely have any skewers left from the grilled sausages." Nowadays, people are visiting free museums, bringing their own instant noodles, and staying the night at bathhouses or in their cars. A popular saying among the 90s generation is, "Any scenic spot with tickets over 20 yuan is a capitalist trap." Businesses have been thoroughly outwitted by this new wave of tourists. What was supposed to be revenge spending has turned into revenge freeloading. This is capitalism's slice, encountering an awakened mass of people. Scenic spots and hotels thought they could profit from information asymmetry, but they didn't realize that young people had already seen through this trick. Despite China's 1.4 billion population, even 200 million in Qinghai couldn't stimulate tourism spending this year. This generation of young people is living very wisely. You build your fake ancient streets, I'll visit the museums and zoos. You create expensive homestays, I'll just pitch a tent for the night. You raise prices, I'll travel on a budget. You expand, I'll slack off. I'm determined not to be the fool. In summary, the main reason for the losses at scenic spots is the severe overcharging and lack of respect for tourists. If this continues, it won't just be about losses. It's possible that these scenic spots will turn into wastelands.
Who would have thought that tourism would become the hardest business to run in 2025? On August 17th, at a scenic spot in Zhangjiajie, there was a 100-meter-long line at the entrance to the glass walkway. Tourists were moving forward with their phones in hand, while nearby, the staff at the zipline station stood idly by, staring at an empty platform. This has become the daily reality for tourism workers this year. The free areas are packed like sardines, while paid attractions are nearly empty, like a group of people looking at a menu, but none willing to order. This crowded loss is even more painful than emptiness. A manager of a 5A rated scenic spot posted on their social media. This weekend, the daily visitor count exceeded 30,000, but revenue has decreased by 40% compared to 3 years ago. Now, freeloading tourism has become the mainstream. Check-in online, but no spending. At popular spots like Hangzhou's West Lake, groups of young people take photos of the Leifeng Pagoda, then immediately leave, using the scenic spot only as a free background. No one is willing to pay 40 yuan for a ticket. The staff can only smile wryly. They don't want to climb the pagoda to see the view. They just want to post, "I'm at Westlake," on their social media. This check-in and done tourism model is draining the cash flow of scenic spots. At Huangshan's Instagram-worthy small train, last year, tourists had to wait 2 hours in line, but this year, half of the seats are empty. The reason is simple. TikTok is filled with guides for walking the back road along the train route, and tourists realized they can walk 20 minutes to see the same view without spending 80 yuan. Data from an OTA platform shows that in 2025, searches for free scenic spots increased by 210% compared to last year, and the reading volume of budget travel guides reached 1.2 billion times. The items tourists are no longer spending on, such as tickets, cable cars, and boat rides, are being replaced by survival tricks like bring your own snacks, free viewing platforms, and use the restroom to cool off with air conditioning. Now, young people follow the principle of value for money. If the cable car costs 180 yuan, they'd rather climb up, and they can make a climbing video for TikTok. The cable car ridership at one mountain scenic spot dropped from 70% to 35%, and the manager lamented, "It used to be just the elderly and children who took the cable car, but now even the young people prefer to hike, saying it's cheaper and healthier." Under the pressure of an economic downturn, tourists are increasingly opting for low-cost stress relief. They bring folding chairs, self-heating rice meals, and large water bottles, spending up to 8 hours in free areas to minimize spending. This zero-cost tourism reflects a widespread disappointment with overpriced and low-quality paid attractions, with tourists preferring free zones to avoid the risk of being overcharged. Moreover, scenic spots are caught in a dilemma. If they don't organize events to attract visitors, the area becomes empty. If they do, they bring in crowds but don't make money, and still have to cover the costs. A certain scenic spot canceled its free weekend performances, with the manager explaining, "One performance attracts 5,000 people, but nearly none of them spend money. The stage setup and actor fees alone cost 20,000 yuan, so we lose money on each show." The core of the problem for scenic spots is that as economic pressures reach every household, tourism has shifted from discretionary spending to basic needs. The core of the problem is the economic pressure each household is facing. People still want to go out and relax, but are only willing to pay for the most basic pleasures. On a deeper level, there's a collapse of the trust system. Tourists, burned by sky-high ticket prices and forced consumption, have become naturally suspicious of paid attractions. A recent survey showed that 72% of tourists feel that scenic spot pricing offers poor value for money, and 68% would rather spend the same amount of money drinking coffee in the city than spending it at a scenic spot. When scenic spots lose trust, even large crowds become mere passersby. This year, the issue facing scenic spots is not the lack of visitors, but the lack of paying visitors. It's not the lack of attractions, but the absence of worthwhile attractions. When tourists express their distrust by engaging in zero-cost tourism, and the old tactics of charging for attractions no longer work, tourism spots must face a harsh reality. The era where they could just buy land and charge fees is completely over.